Cool. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to join Life Science Nation's webinar today, Early Stage Fundraising 101, Delivering a Successful Virtual Pitch. My name is Candice He. I am the Vice President of Business Development Team at Life Science Nation. Today, I'm joined by my colleague, Karen. Karen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure thing. Hello, everyone. My name is Karen Deyo. I'm the Director of Investor Research at Life Science Nation, which means I'm one of the people that talks to the investors and finds out what they're looking for, and more about do's and don'ts and what they like to see and what they don't.
Thank you, Karen. So today in this webinar, this is the agenda for the session. I'm going to start off the webinar with a brief introduction of our company, LSN. Then I'm going to give you guys a quick overview on the virtual pitch challenge that they are going to host at the Digital RESI March conference. So you can learn more about the format, what to prepare. Then Karen is going to share how to build a good presentation, some tips on your pitch materials. Last but not least, they are going to share some guidelines on preparing for the investor questions. At the end of today's session, they're going to reach out to all of you and share the recording and the slides. So don't worry about the taking notes. They will share all the info we will covering today. So Life Science Nation is our company. This company was founded 10 years ago in Boston. So we are dedicated to help early stage life science entrepreneurs to connect with investors and also licensing partners. At the beginning, we started as a database company. We have two databases. On the left side of the slides, you can see we have a investor database and also a business development database. The investor database tracks over 10,000 investor contacts, representing over 3,000 investment firms. And it's also connected with RESI because every single time when we are hosting a RESI conference, we will send invitations to them all. And then 400 or 500 of them want to get signed up. So we will ask them for the investor mandate and the latest contact information. So that's how we curate our database, and that's how we can make sure the data is up to date. And the database is open for subscription for all the fundraising startups. The other database is called Business Development Database. Many big pharma service providers who are looking for potential partners or clients, they are subscribing to this one. And now we track over 60,000 life science companies from all over the world. We also have an accelerator called Focus on Cure Accelerator. So through this accelerator, we provide entrepreneur programs, education programs that helps entrepreneurs to gain some knowledge on fundraising, and also we provide free webinars like this one. And then on the right side, you can see here is a series of RESI conference. So majority of our people from our network know us from Redefining Early Stage Investment Conference, RESI. And RESI is now the biggest partnering conference in North America that's focused on early stage life science fundraising and licensing. So if you are a scientist entrepreneur, if you are a fundraising CEO of a life science company, if you are raising your seed round, Series A, Series B, anything under $50 million, then RESI will be a great fit for you. This is a schedule for our 2023 RESIs. As you can see, our upcoming RESI is going to be Digital RESI March, from March 14th to March 16th. And on this RESI, we are expecting over 300 investors from all over the world to join us for the virtual partnering panels, workshops, and Innovators Pitch Challenge, or IPC, which is a topic we're going to cover today. After that, we are going to host a hybrid RESI in Boston in June. So it's going to be the first day for in-person or on-site workshops, pitch sessions, panels, partnering, and then the following 2 days will be for virtual partnering only. Following the same format, they are going to have another RESI Boston during Boston Biotech Week in September. Then the last RESI of the year will be the digital RESI in November. So today we are going to talk about how to pitch virtually. So the first question you need to ask yourself is, do you know your audience? And today, luckily, we have Karen from our investor research team to join the webinar. So Karen, would you like to share a few information about the investor we are tracking and also the frequent coming to RESI investors on the screenshot?
Absolutely. Now we have a great variety of investors that attend our conferences, and this can be anything from angel groups such as Thai Angels, Mid-Atlantic Bio Angels. There's a lot of different investor groups, either from the US or international, that come to our conferences. We also have corporate venture capital groups, and this can be groups such as the, Beringer Engelheim Venture Fund. There's Agilent has a corporate venture capital, and Medtronic Ventures. So it can be anything from a pharma to someone developing tools and services to medical devices. So there's a very wide variety of corporate venture capital, endowments and foundations. So the venture fund of the March of Dimes, which is relatively new, they're coming to RESI March. We have others as well, like Bright Edge from the American Cancer Society, and a few other foundations that do venture investing. Family offices and private wealth are, of course, very common, and there are many of those. Also, featuring several government organizations, some hedge funds and institutional alternative investors, but also, of course, the large corporations, in addition to their corporate venture capital, will also send their BD groups. So, the AstraZeneca, Merck, AbbVie, and all of them will send representatives to our conferences, as well as, of course, the standard PE and venture capital, anything from micro VCs all the way up to larger groups.
Thank you very much, Karen. Yeah, as you guys all know, fundraising is a numbers game. So it is very important for you to reach out to the global investors and also all types of the investors. And RESI have them all. So if you are looking to fundraising from the global arena, RESI will be a good fit for you. Yeah, so I want to provide a little bit more information on our upcoming RESI, which will be a completely virtual conference or digital conference. We will have 3 days from March 14th to 16th. And in addition to the 300 investor attendees, we are expecting over 200 startup attendees. Dozens of the service providers and also tech hubs, group delegations. So for this RESI, we are going to have over 12 investor panels and workshops, and also over 50 pitch slots. So now the application portal has already been opened. If you are interested, feel free to go to RESI website and fill out your application today. Here is a agenda of the 3 days. As you can see, all the panels, workshops, and pitch sessions are scattered in the 3 days. And most importantly, this time, LSN is introducing the education sessions for all 3 days. You can see we have sessions on every day at 11 a.m. and also 12 p.m. So if you are a first-time CEO, entrepreneur, and you want to learn more about how to build your materials, you want to gain some tips on your partnering, how to get as many investor meetings as possible, how to follow up with them, then RESI entrepreneur education workshops will give you some answers. So for Innovators Pitch Challenge or IPC, the first question you may have is who should apply? So we are targeting all the life science startups. So our definition for life science is 4D: drugs or therapeutics, devices or medtech, diagnostics, and digital health or healthcare IT. Have a different terms for that. And also R&D service startups. So if you are working on any of those sectors, you could be a fit. Then regarding the fundraising stage, we think that a seed stage companies, or if you're raising Series A, which is 2 to 10 million, or Series B, 10 to 50 million, anything under $50 million, or if you're a early stage company looking for licensing partners, then again, this will be a fit for you. The pitch package is a $17.95, which including the 3-day tickets to the Digital RESI March. And here, just so you guys can learn more about your peers, we have the Digital RESI June finalists from last year. So you can see who participated. Maybe you guys are familiar with some of those companies showcased here. Participating in IPC can incredibly increase your visibility in front of the investors, because as soon as you become one of our IPC finalists, your company logo will be featured on the RESI website. The conference live agenda where all the attendees need to go to if they wanted to join any sessions. And the finalist and the winner will be announced on the LS newsletter. So this newsletter goes out every week on Thursday, and the readership is around 50,000 people. So if you are fundraising, again, it's a numbers game. So we have channels to boost your visibility. And also we are going to connect the IPC finalists with their investor judges of their session. And also for every session is open to all the RESI attendees. So you can expect some investors in the audience. Typically, at least there will be like 20, 30 of the investors be in the audience. And it's a very common case where they ask the startup company, hey, I was I was there when you were pitching on the IPC pitch session, and I thought your presentation or your Q&A is very interesting. Can we schedule a meeting? So many people said they doubled their investor meetings after they participated in IPC. And then at the end of the 3-day Digital RESI, we are going to have all the attendees vote for their favorite company. And the top 3 companies, the 3 winners, will receive free tickets to the Future RESI conference. So for those who are not super familiar with the RESI IPC, I want to clarify our format. It's a very unique and really different from other events. So they are, first of all, going to group all the companies based on their similar sector or technology. And each session, we will have 4 companies. So for example, like first day on 10 a.m., we can have 4 companies. All of them are therapeutic companies. And then the second day at 12, we have like 4 medtech or medical device companies, or diagnostics, etc. So all of them are going to be based on the same sector, and we are going to invite the investor judges who are the expert of this sector. Normally, we will have 5 to 7 investor judges. Before RESI, we are going to send over your materials, including your pitch deck and Excel summary, to the investor judges so they can review and prepare for some questions. During this pitch session, you are going to have 4 minutes for your pitch presentation with your slides. Then it's followed by 9 to 10 minutes live Q&A session with the investor judges. So in total, everybody have like 14 to 15 minutes in total. And again, after the session, we are going to connect you with all the investor judges, so you don't need to worry about the contact information. Another way we can help you to showcase your technology to the investor attendees is the IPC dedicated webpage. So just consider this as a virtual exhibition. If the investors see your logo on the RESI live agenda, they can just click on it and see a page like this on the right side. It's going to have your logo, your description, your pitch video, which is optional, your Excel summary and slide deck. So everything you need to get an investor meeting, we will help you to format it and also put them onto the same web page. And then all the investor attendees will have access to it. Some optional materials, including your like a detailed image or demo of the product, if you have any, but it's like, again, not mandatory. And also, like, if you have already got some testimonials, then of course we can put that on your page too. So applying for IPC is really easy because it's only a 5-minute application. As you can see, we need your basic non-confidential materials like your pitch deck, your Excel summary, and your company logo. Then we just need some information on your company sector, subsector, indication, to make sure that you will be a fit for RESI. Because in the past, we do have some applicants who misunderstood the theme of RESI, and actually they are like agriculture company, or they are focused on animal health, and they still apply for IPC. So this process is just to make sure you will be a fit. And then at the end of the submission, the payment is required, which is $17.95 for you to become a finalist for IPC. The pitch slots are limited, and we are going to accept the application until Friday, February 17th. So if you're interested, I strongly encourage you to submit your application today. Yeah, so next part, Karen is going to share some tips on what makes a good presentation and how to prepare for the investor questions.
Yes, thanks, Candice. So we're going to discuss just about how, what you want to include in your pitch, what you should be ready for when you're doing a pitch. And this is not just in terms of when you're participating in a pitch competition. This can also be carried over into any time you're pitching to an investor. So what do you want to include in your initial pitch? What makes a good presentation? First of all, you have to make sure you're tailoring yourself to the time you have allotted. So, you know, you have to be equally ready for a 1-minute pitch versus a 4-minute pitch. Whatever the format is of what you're participating in, make sure that you've practiced it, timed yourself, and you know that you're not going to run over. Because it doesn't look great if you have to cut yourself off in the middle of your presentation because you didn't calculate how long it would take you to say everything you want to say. So remember that investors are interested not just in the scientific merit of your technology, but also in investor readiness, because investors will look at a lot more than just the technology. You know, it of course does have to be a technology that meets a highly unmet need and that it's differentiable from what's already existing or what is also currently under development by other people. You will want to have a broad IP position. You want to have some positive data to date, some milestones that you've hit, some sort of proof of concept. You know, having an experienced management team is a plus, but not necessary, because some investors will definitely be investing in new entrepreneurs. But if you can get top tier advisors, key opinion leaders involved, that can go also a long way, even if your management team is not super experienced as entrepreneurs. One other thing is you do want to make sure that they're experienced with the technology or something like that, because that can also play a large role. Like if you're a new entrepreneur, but you've spent 20 years working on this technology, that can also go a long way to ensuring that the investors are comfortable. If you have any strategic alliances for manufacturing, clinical partners, or for any sort of pilot studies or anything like that, that is also good to have. And also make sure that your marketing collateral is investor ready, so that you have a pitch deck, an executive summary all ready to go. We also recommend a one-page tear sheet, and have your intro messages and any follow-up messages all ready to go, so that you can maximize your outreach, and also so that you make a good impression on the investors for any materials that they ask you to send them. So tips about how to message your pitch, like how to work on your messaging, and what to keep in mind when you're doing a pitch, and also when you're participating in a Q&A. So you want to clearly describe your technology, and this is both in the pitch and afterwards. And for the Q&A, you also want to make sure that you understand and answer the questions fully. If you're not 100% sure what they're asking, clarify, because you don't want it to seem like you're dodging the question, or you don't have a good answer for the question that they're asking. You also want to be very clear and concise, but you also want to give as much detail as you can with as few words as possible. So, you don't want to say something like, my company has proprietary treatment for many critical illnesses. That doesn't actually give a lot of information. It's very, very vague. If you say something like, we are developing an IND-ready small molecule acid for breast cancer by activating natural killer cells. It's not full of jargon. It's got a little bit of terminology, but something that you would expect anyone who's in the broad life science arena to at least have an idea of what you're trying to say. So you're not going into specific molecules that requires a lot of familiarity. But you're giving a lot more information in one sentence, and not that many more words than you would in the first sentence. So it's very important to be clear and not vague. You want to be realistic in your statements, and this is something that can be an issue for some people. You want to know your competitors. You cannot say we have no competition. That is a huge red flag for investors. You have to, there's always a standard of care that you would be replacing, even if it's doesn't treat it exactly the way you would. And there's always going to be competition in the space, whether, something that's being developed by another startup or a large company that might end up competing with your product may end up treating it differently, but it's probably still treating the condition that you are, or trying to solve the problem that you are. So you also want to highlight how your technology differentiates itself from its competitors. So that's also one big key, is because you want to be able to say, well, we have this and this competition, this is the standard of care, they do all of these things, we do all of these things, and we do this better or this better, and they may do this better, but we don't think it's that big of an issue because of this, this, and this. And so make your statements qualifying, and make it clear that you've done your research on the current standard of care and your competition. We have a question here. Sorry, I didn't see it earlier. Someone asked, what's the difference between a pitch deck and an executive summary? So a pitch deck is going to be a presentation kind of like this. It has to be very visual, but it has to be standalone. So don't expect to have to read through it for the investor. Like, they should be able to look through the pitch deck, the slide deck on their own. and not have someone talking. Executive summary is generally 2 pages written. So that is just the reason that they should have, you know, the same information, but the reason we recommend you have both ready is because some people prefer one or the other. I have colleagues that for any company that comes through to us always looks at their executive summary. I myself prefer a pitch deck because I'm a more visual person and I prefer getting my information that way. So that's just kind of to give you a different forms of marketing collateral. And you know, basically that's just for different people and different preferences. It looks like we have another. Oh, no, never mind. Okay, we're good. Okay, so going on, explain your current company status in detail. So you want to explain what you've done, your current status, where you are, you know, and you want to provide the strategic direction of your company. Like what milestones are you looking to hit? When are you going to hit them? Like, you know, what will that mean for moving forward? And you also definitely want to make sure to avoid ambiguous statements, as I mentioned before. So just provide the details. Okay, and this is kind of a continuation of what I was just saying, summarizing near-term and long-term strategy. So you want to state what your current stage of development is, but you definitely want to say what steps you're taking to reach your next milestone, and you know, if there are any key relationships that are helping with that. If you don't have any issued patents, what is your strategy for getting them? What you know, you need to provide more than just yes or no answers. And, you know, if you have a strategy in place, you also need to be able to defend your reasoning for why you selected this strategy versus other options. So just, you know, make sure that you know what milestones you're looking to hit and why they are important for reaching the next inflection point for your company. So you also want to provide enough information, but you don't want to go overboard. Your initial interactions with your investor won't get into all the details, and don't expect to be able to cover all of the details right off the bat. You got in the first time around, you want to give them enough to hook them, and get to the next meeting. And then you give them progressively more and more information as time goes on. So you shouldn't have to, you know, you don't need a 60-slide pitch deck. 10 to 12 slides should be sufficient. A paragraph or 2 should be enough for your company description. You don't need to, you know, send them, you know, a full page plus 10 articles that you've written. You don't need that much information. You really need to make sure that you're giving them only little bits at a time. You don't want to overload them.
Hey, Karen, we actually have a relevant question now regarding the length of the pitch deck. You sort of have already said like it's 10 to 12 pages, but could you elaborate to answer this question?
Yeah, absolutely. So for the slides that you use for a pitch deck, I would say you can tailor them to be going along with your 4-minute pitch. When we talk about a pitch deck that you want to have ready as part of your marketing collateral, that's not something that you're going to be using for a 4-minute pitch. Your 4-minute pitch slides are probably going to be a subset of that pitch deck. We refer to the pitch deck and executive summary as materials that you want to make sure to get ready for an investor who says, oh, you know, when you reach out to them, they're like, oh, your company is really interesting. Please send me your pitch deck. So that's the sort of thing that you want to think about. And thank you for bringing up that question so that I could clarify. So a presentation that you get ready for a pitch competition such as this is not the same as your standard pitch deck that you should have as part of your general marketing collateral. Okay, so going to the 4-minute presentation, what do we recommend that you have for the 4-minute presentation? So you definitely want to cover what unmet need are you treating? Like what if it is a treatment for a specific indication that has less than ideal treatments? Is it a pain point within the healthcare system that you're trying to address? What is your technology addressing? If it is a patient population, or like something about the healthcare system, or anything that it is. And it's not necessarily, the pain point is not necessarily with the patient themselves. Sometimes it's about how they get treated, depending on the type of technology. You want to give them an overview of what the technology is, how it works, and what makes it better than what's currently on the market, included in the competitive landscape. And that should include not just what is currently being done, but also if you are aware of any other organizations, startups that are developing similar products. So it doesn't have to be what's already on the market. It could be what's under development. What milestones have you achieved? And then, choose one additional theme to highlight about your company. It could be the management team and their experience. It could be any key opinion leaders that are involved in your company. You want to highlight any funding that you've achieved to date, or grants that you've received that you're especially proud of. Any more information about the addressable market. That's the sort of thing that we recommend for this sort of thing. And we do want to make sure, one more thing I will note is that time yourself. And I cannot emphasize that enough. You will be surprised at how fast 4 minutes goes by. So time yourself to make sure that you can actually say everything you want to say fast, like within the 4 minutes, and you won't be going over. Okay. So in terms of, once you've given your presentation, a large part of what we do is also the Q&A, because you have your 4-minute pitch, but you have 8 to 9 minutes of Q&A. So that's kind of that you really want to think of, excuse me. You really want to think about what kinds of questions the investors might ask you and be prepared for them. So the potential topics for the investor questions could include more information on your technology, more information on the product and how it works, how it addresses the market needs specifically, any more information about your validating data or the milestones that you've achieved. Also, potentially, if there are other applications for the technology, because a lot of times, company or investors want to see that you can either pivot if necessary, or that it's if it's a platform technology, they want to know that and what other indications that it can be part of. In terms of the market and competition, may want more information about the specific market size. And please do not say cancer or diabetes, because that is a red flag to investors that you haven't done your market research, because you're never going to be targeting all patients in those areas. You'll probably only be targeting a subset. Like, for example, if you're doing it, don't just say diabetes. You might want to say people with onset type 2 diabetes that are not reliant on insulin yet. And that is your first group. And say what subset of the total insulin population that is. And you can even say, yes, eventually we want to spread to these other populations within the subset, but you definitely want to make sure to narrow your focus right off the bat, because you want to be able to tell them not only what patient subpopulation you're targeting, what percentage of the full population that is, how many people that can be treated, and all that. You want to definitely have done your research on the market earlier on. Any barriers to entry that there might be, if there's other competition that will block the way of you getting anywhere and getting into the market. And also, of course, as I mentioned, definitely mention the competitive landscape, which should include the current standard of care and any other technologies. As I cannot emphasize enough the importance of making sure to have a complete competitive landscape. Um, Now, other questions, regulatory reimbursement. Are either of them going to be necessary? If they are, what is your plan for getting there? Have you started talking to service providers or other consultants to make sure that the path is smooth as possible, that you have, or do you have experience in getting it through either system? What is your fundraising plan and your path to exit? So you're definitely should be giving them the amount of funds that you're going to be raising, and what milestones you'll achieve with that money. So what timeline is that? And once you've achieved that, where do you go from there? What is your path to exit? Is it going to be an acquisition? Are you going to do in-house sales? Are you going to IPO? These are all the things that you want that they might be asking you. And then they may ask more information on the management team. What is the experience and expertise of the management team in this area or in entrepreneurship in general? Are there any key opinion leaders that are involved? Now, the one thing that I will say about key opinion leaders, and this is one thing that I always make sure to mention, because this is something that I've heard investors talking about companies frequently getting burned, is that a company will list a key opinion leader as being involved in their company. The investor will reach out to the key opinion leader, and the key opinion leader will have no idea what the investor is talking about. So don't list a key opinion leader as being involved in your company unless they are actually involved, because investors do their due diligence. They will reach out, they will ask. So you want to make sure that you and the KOL are on the same page. One final thing I do want to note about all of these questions is that investors, especially in the early stages, won't expect you to have all of the answers to all of these questions. There's no way for you to be able to answer some of them because you're still in development. You're still not at that stage. But they do want you to have considered the question and to have a strategy in place for figuring it out, how to get the answer. So, for example, for regulatory and for regulatory, are you going to need to go through the FDA or some other regulatory agency? If you are, what is your strategy for talking to the FDA and continuing that process? Have you talked to consultants to make sure you're applying to the right regulatory, like the right, like getting the right type of regulatory requirements? Because I've heard of companies that have gone through the wrong pathway to the FDA, and that ended up making it impossible for them to get approval. And then the company ended up falling apart because they couldn't change it afterwards. So that's definitely something to think about. So all of these things, all of these different questions, just at least think about your solution. If you have a well-reasoned strategy in place, that will definitely help.
Speaking of due diligence, Karen, they have a question in the Q&A box. It's about a more later stage of a deal negotiation, but would you like to address it?
Sure. So I know that there are several options for setting up a data room that are either relatively cheap or even free. I don't know. I don't remember them off the top of my head. But that is definitely something that will be a lot later stage than the pitch. That's a little bit down the line, but I will, if you send an email to resi@lifesciencenation.com, I will see about what I can recall from times when we've helped clients set up a data room when they were at that stage of their due diligence with investors.
Yeah, thank you,
And
Karen.
yes, we will be sharing our slides with the audience.
Yes, our team will follow up with everyone to send over the recording of today's webinar and also the presentation slides. Again, if you have any questions regarding RESI, IPC, or if you want to run a sample search in our investor database to see how many could be a fit for you, then feel free to email us at resi@lifesciencenation.com. We also have LinkedIn account and Twitter account where we publish many updates for RESI about the speakers, finalists. So feel free to follow us and connect us on those social media platforms.